Hey, I'm Kevin. She's Wendy. And this is episode 4 of the Antigua series from our trip in June of 2022. A quick recap before we get started. Episode 1 is all about getting there, including how and why we made some of the decisions we did. Episode 2 covers our first full day on the island. We motored to Cades Reef with Antigua Reef Riders for some snorkeling, followed by the tribulations of finding Carlisle Bay for more snorkeling. Episode 3 regales you with our dive trip to the Pillars of Hercules, a funny anecdote about this boat, and a sighting of the elusive Antiguan stealth lizard. Along the way, I've been sharing a running tally of our expenses as we incurred them, and I'll be continuing that theme in this episode with a final bottom line calculation at the end of the series. Day 3 was a Saturday, and we didn't have any outings pre-booked, so we slept in a bit and savored our breakfast on the deck of the Treehouse. Now, real quick, before we get into the meat of the episode, can you do us a huge favor and let us know down in the comments where you're watching from? That would be amazing. We finally got underway at around 10:15. And this time, our destination was Galleon Beach on Freeman's Bay. The peninsula, where the Pillars of Hercules are located, forms much of the landmass that protects the bay, along with the opposite point where the remains of Fort Berkeley sit. Antigua has a truly convoluted shape, which is probably why there are 365 individual beaches on the island. It also means that there are a lot of named bodies of water to keep track of. For example, Freeman's Bay is scooped out of the southeastern side of English Harbor, which is also the location of Nelson's Dockyard, while Falmouth Harbor sits right on the other side of a narrow strip of land less than 900 feet wide. One look at English Harbor from this vantage point makes it clear why this was such a valuable spot for the British Navy back in the 18th century. But that is a story for another day. As we were leaving, I wondered aloud what weekend traffic would be like. Just then, we once again passed some of the neighborhood horses. I wonder what weekend traffic is like on Antigua.
Horses don't seem to have a different agenda, that's for sure.
You mean it seems like they don't know it's the weekend?
It's almost as if they don't know.
As always, St. John's was the busiest part of our journey, but by this point, I was wondering about this one specific spot across from the supermarket. What is this over here on the left? Whatever it is, it seems very popular. Everything's all jammed up here because people are stopping to...
Maybe it's like there's stuff back there. Oh yeah, look, there's like a little market back there, like the souks
That explains.
in Oman.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff happening back there.
Alright. So this is just the outer stalls of a bigger market.
Yeah.
And once again, the right-hand turn from Perry Bay Main Road onto Valley Road is a perfect example of the calm chaos you often experience when driving here. If you haven't seen the previous videos, there are no traffic controls at this four-way intersection, so sometimes you just have to find your own path. This might look a little aggressive, but everyone knows what my intentions are, and by letting us through, they have one less obstacle to deal with. As you can see, it's the side coming in to town that's busy for market day. We're just in the way. Now, let me show you the type of thing you come to expect when you've spent as much time with Wendy as I have. Handwritten job board.
You're gonna get a surprise, maybe.
I am.
Yes.
I'm intrigued.
You should be.
Let's
Curious,
see
he
what
got the
this
best of you.
surprise is it sparkling water?
Oh,
Oh, that's ice in it?
yes. It's icy cold. Icy goodness.
Here's another thing that happens a lot when you go places with Wendy.
Hello.
And then about 12 minutes later, did you say hi, baby?
Hi, baby. Hello.
The whole drive to Galleon Beach that day was somewhere in the 45 minutes to 1 hour range. It will come as no surprise to those of you who have been following our travels to this point that we were there for snorkeling. This little cove down here, closer to the point, was the best area we found in this location. It's a very easy swim, especially with fins, but thankfully, you don't have to swim it. There's a path. It takes you up and over the rocks that separate the two sections of beach. The visibility was pretty crap that day, so I didn't get a ton of usable footage, and what I did get had to be manipulated a lot to make it worth watching. But check it out. We followed this young spotted eagle ray for a couple of minutes while it searched for and eventually found something to eat. These suckers grow to be like 16 feet long from snout to tail, with a wingspan of 10 feet. We also stumbled upon this guy. I'm pretty sure he's a spotted moray, and the neighbors are giving him what for. Every time he finds a spot to hide, they run him off. Until he takes advantage of his body shape and finds a spot where they can't follow. There are a couple of wrecks in the shallows here too, which is always fun and usually a good place to spot some life. And here's the thing. This is free if you have your own gear. You can get decent entry-level mask, fins, and snorkel for like $75. 25 or so for the mask, 20 for the snorkel, and like 30 for the fins. Another option is to rent gear the first couple of times to see if you enjoy it, which has the additional benefit of being a great way to support local businesses. But since we already own the gear, we spent zero. Zip, zilch, nil, nada on our outing that day, meaning that our expenses to date remain the same as last time. To reiterate, for those just joining us, Airfare from SFO to Antigua, $917. Long-term parking in San Francisco, $126. Travel insurance, $352. Rental car, $291. Accommodations at the Treehouse, $621. Thursday's trip with the Reef Riders, $250. The boat drive with Dive Carib on Friday, $298. Snorkeling at Galleon Beach, $0. For a total to date of $2,855. This day we spent almost exactly 2 hours at Galleon Beach, getting back to the car around 1:15. We popped over to Nelson's dockyard, but rather than go in, we decided that Saturday would be our excursion to the windward side of the island. In case you ever wondered what it meant in A Few Good Men when they talk about
Rifle Security Company, Windward.
Marine Barracks, Windward. And Rifle Security Company, Windward, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
when describing a location on an island, windward means the side of the island which faces the prevailing winds. In the case of Antigua, that's the eastern and northern sides, which absorb the brunt of the Atlantic's fury so that we all can marvel and play in the beauty and calm on the leeward or Caribbean side.
I'd like to see Devil's Bridge. Doesn't look like it would be an hour.
Devil's Bridge is 34 minutes from here.
Right, but Halfmoon is before we get there.
Do you want to go there first?
I think it's like.
Well, I can search
No, it
for
says I know exactly where it is. It's right. So we're here. Oh crap!
Here.
Oh, right. It's over here. And then Devil's Bridge is up here. It isn't like, oh, let's do that on the way.
Right.
But it is. They're both on this section of the island.
Right. So you want to go to Halfmoon Bay first?
Where do we want to ultimately end up?
Here's what I think. I think we go to Halfmoon Bay, then we see what time it is. If we still want to go to Devil's Bridge, we go to Devil's Bridge.
And then this
And
way.
then whenever
and
we're
all-
done at Devil's Bridge, we see what time it is.
Right. And if there's no seaweed on the beach, that's also a place to snorkel.
When Wendy mentioned seaweed, she was talking about SARGASSUM, which is actually a floating algae and is very important for ocean ecosystems. The thing is, runoff from the Amazon, Mississippi, and Congo rivers is carrying increasing levels of phosphates and nitrates, which just means fertilizer, into the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea, and Atlantic Ocean, combined with warming waters, is supercharging the production of sargassum, which, among other things, gets ingested or tangled in boat motors, makes snorkeling pretty miserable, and ends up in laminated mats of rotting, stinking disgustingness, usually starting on the windward side. So, we were aware that it was a thing.
People, get ready for the smell tomorrow.
We were a good 10 minutes from Halfmoon Bay when I first got a whiff of it.
Smells like rotting seaweed if I've ever smelled it.
Sadly, it was a windy day, and the stink of rotting sargassum was intense. It's hard to see the beach from this dash cam footage, but you can see the brown waves, right? There was a giant front-end loader on the beach working on the problem. We also saw this large machine parked nearby. A new industry is being created to save the tourism industry because of the farming industry that's been supersized by the chemical industry, thanks mostly to the banking industry, if I had to guess. By the way, you know those beautiful white sand beaches in the Caribbean? Do you know what they're made of? I'll tell you in a later video. We had a really amazing time at Devil's Bridge. When we first arrived, it wasn't clear exactly where Lucifer's Viaduct was located, in relation to the larger landscape. Signage isn't a big thing on Antigua. The whole place was pretty much deserted. Then, a voice from one of these adorable little buildings called out to offer directions. In thanks, we promised to stop by her shop on our way out. We spent around 45 minutes scrambling around on the slippery rocks, taking photos and video, where, you can see, the SARGASSUM was already collecting here, too. Every year here in Santa Cruz, despite abundant signage and fences, several people a year are swept off the cliffs by unpredictable waves. As a general rule, they don't survive. So while photos like the one this guy is getting might look cool on Instagram, it's hardly worth the risk. Look into the water here and imagine trying to get out, especially when fully dressed and wearing shoes. It is definitely a magnificent natural location, and we highly recommend taking a drive over while visiting Antigua. Good to our word, we did stop by that woman's shop, and her inventory was much larger and varied than we expected. I ended up buying my standard souvenirs of a baseball cap and a patch of the national flag. She was a very sweet woman. She didn't pressure us in any way. Rather, we just shared a pleasant conversation while shopping. Back in the car, we chatted a bit about her and the woman in a neighboring shop who was the only other one open when we were there.
She was a sweetheart.
Yeah, she was nice.
She's like, I know you need change, don't you? Yes. She was really sweet. And she just snags people.
Oh,
The
hell
other
yeah.
woman, that poor other woman, she's like, hi.
Right, you need to know where the bridge is, like day late, dollar short, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Gotta be more
How
on
do
top
they
of
get
it than
along
that.
with each other?
Huh?
How do they get along with each other?
Oh, I'm sure it's a friendly competition. Don't you think?
It would have to be.
They sell completely different stuff,
Do
too.
they?
The other woman sells, like, art. She had, like, art and stuff out.
Oh.
Way back in the Bali video, I remember mentioning the lovely aromas emanating from a nearby temple. If you're wondering what the odor from the SARGASSUM was like on this day, Wendy summed it up perfectly a few minutes later.
I want the smell to stop. I'm tired of it.
Is that the way it works?
Yes.
Some of the roads in Antigua were in excellent kit during our visit, but many of them were barely paved and or had some pretty extreme potholes. We were aware of this before we went, but even so, it led me to make the following comment during the next segment of our drive.
Yeah, if you don't get rental car insurance when you rent a car in Antigua, you're a moron.
Yeah.
It will not surprise me if they tell us there's something wrong with this car.
From Devil's Bridge, our next stop was Betty's Hope. One small hiccup we had in Antigua relating to GPS, we used Waze, was that it defaults to giving you the shortest or most direct route possible. This is great most of the time, but this little Kia wasn't intended for some of the shortcuts Waze was offering. So we would occasionally need to stop and determine a better route.
It was just
9 to
dirt.
4, Sundays and public holidays by appointment. They close at 4.
Oh. Just missed it.
We arrived at 4:05. So the gates were already closed and the site was deserted. Not to worry though, I had the drone with me and sent it up for a short flight. Betty's Hope was the first large-scale sugar plantation to operate in Antigua. Christopher Codrington acquired the property in 1674 and named it Betty's Hope after his daughter. With an average trade wind, these mills could grind about 200 tons of cane in a week. Until 1834, all of the labor-intensive, hazardous work was done by enslaved people, mostly from West Africa. The mills and boiling houses were the most dangerous places to work on a sugar plantation back then. This mill has been restored to working condition. There are plans to restore the rest of the property as well, to develop it as an open-air museum to highlight the profound influence this estate had in Antigua and Barbuta's history. As we were pulling away from Betty's Hope, Wendy had a suggestion for dinner.
We're just gonna have I think we should have watermelon and grilled cheese sandwich.
That sounds really good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What the hell? And yogurt.
On the way home, we passed a dog on the side of the road, which sparked a short conversation.
This dog drinking out of the gutter.
God, see the balls?
Yes, I did.
Holy shit. We're not doing him any favors keeping him that way.
That's the second dog I've seen here that's intact like that, and it's so funny because it's been so long since I've seen a dog that still has its balls. It's like, it seems like it's
unnatural.
Yeah, it's like a tumor or something.
We arrived back at the treehouse around 5 o'clock for those grilled cheese sandwiches and watermelon, the latter of which we shared with these Bananaquits, which came to visit every afternoon. Okay, stick a fork in this one. Coming up next is the final installment in the Antigua series, which offers more fun in the water, a visit to Nelson's dockyard, and the world-famous Sunday night party at Shirley Heights. I'll also go over the final expense tally, including return airfare and incidental expenses. If you're enjoying our content, please click subscribe and hit that little bell to be notified when we post new content. It doesn't cost a thing and really, really helps get more eyeballs on our videos. Much appreciated. Thanks as always for watching. See you in the next one.